If I was going to republish my mangas with a traditional publisher, what would be some of the benefits of doing that? Well, surprisingly, going with the publisher does have a ton of benefits depending on who you're going with, but they're all attached to trade-offs. For example, when you go with a traditional publisher, you can get something called an advance. And all an advance is they will say, oh, based on your market, your book, your popularity, how well we think the book is going to do, we're going to give you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and if you're like one of the big guys, $100,000 advance. And that's just money that they give you in return for the rights to your book and to do whatever they got to do with it. And depending on the deal you make, after you sell X amount of books that they're going to allow them to recoup that advance, you can start getting some royalties. Sounds like a pretty good deal, right? Well, unfortunately, if you don't ever sell any more books that cover the advance, you don't make any more money off of it. So it does come with a double-edged sword. And another thing that you can consider as a benefit besides connections is the fact that they're going to do the majority of the work for you. From marketing to distribution, which is probably the most costly and complex thing about making books, such as getting your stuff into Walmart, Barnes and Nobles. They take care pretty much doing the print-on-demand services, so you don't ever have to pack anything yourself. They can set up things called author tours where you can travel around the country and basically do book signings and stuff like that. And depending on how popular a book gets and what rights that you allow them to have, they could potentially set you up with an adaptation. Now, the thing is, you can do all of this indie, but the thing is, it is a lot harder to do. And for example, if you're indie, guess what? You may not have the money to fund a cross-country tour to do book signings because you got to call all those shops yourself and set all those events up yourself. And as far as getting an adaptation, that's something you got to go through another agent most likely to do, because a lot of platforms don't accept, non-agent applications. And depending on your deal, publishers can also cover legal fees for your contracts and stuff like that. So there are a lot of benefits from the admin side, the back of the house, that they will take care of for you. But once again, all of that comes at the cost of the rights that you're going to give the publisher, the control that you're going to give up, and the royalties that you're going to get. Because there is a practice, and I'm not going to say a lot of publishers do it, but it is out there where they will buy people's books to put them in a vault. Depending on the contract you sign, you may not have any recourse around it, and your book's just going to sit on some publisher shelf for 5 to 10 years and never really even get pushed, if you know what I mean. So that is something to consider. But if you were one of those people that just want to write, don't want to think about the business side of the house, and want to rely on a publisher to take care of everything else for you, traditional publishing is probably a really good deal. But I will say this, mark my words, you as the author, especially if you're unknown, will have to do the majority of your marketing, because publishers are going to put the most of their money into the big name titles. Getting your book accepted to them, they say that we see potential in your work. We're going to put some effort into it, but there is no guarantee that they are going to put the type of, A-list money and effort into getting your books into readers' hands. That's why your reputation does matter in this industry. But there are a lot of traditionally published agents and authors out there that can speak to this a lot more in depth than I can. These are just talking points and complaints and pieces that I've heard from other traditionally published authors and individuals who have gone from traditional publishing to the indie space. So at the end of the day, neither one is better than the other. They are just different, and depending on your goals and your aspirations, going traditional may be better. Going indie may be better. For me and my studio, going indie is the way, because I control the pacing, I control the complete logistical thing, I control my marketing. And one quick story is, whenever I was with the local writing group, one of the authors there had been able to get picked up by a traditional publisher. But the thing is that I learned is that they had feedback that they could get when it came to their book cover, but they didn't get final say in whether or not it was going to be on it. And the book cover that the traditional publisher picked for them wasn't that great. Honestly, it was kind of bad, but it didn't require the author's approval. They were like, hey, do you got any feedback? They gave it, and then they came up with something else that wasn't that much better, and then they were like, we're going to go with this one. So that is some things that you can expect to deal with if you go traditional publishing. Once again, not worse or better. It's just a different path. If you want to support an indie creator, go ahead and grab a copy of The Night of Slaughter and Devil's Deal, and I'm so confident you'll like it. I upload everything online for free with the exception of the last chapter of each book. So that means you can read all of Volume 1 except for the last chapter and immediately go into Volume 2 for free.